The blue light filled every screen on Earth. It came on phones, on televisions in busy cafes, on giant billboards in city squares. The image was of a creature with smooth, cobalt blue skin and eyes like liquid silver. It spoke, and a computer voice translated the words into every language. The message was the same for everyone. People of Terra, you are now a servitor species. You belong to the Galactic Star Dominion. In 30 of your days, we will take 1 million of your young people. They will serve the Empire. If you fight, we will erase your planet. For a moment, the whole world was silent. Then the noise came. It was the sound of fear, a global gasp of panic. In Seoul, cars stopped in the middle of the street as drivers listened. In Rio de Janeiro, a crowd looked up at a large screen, their faces frozen. In a small home in Kenya, a family held each other, listening to the translated words on an old radio. The Galactics had watched Earth for a long time. They saw the wars on the news. They saw the arguments between nations. They saw people who seemed divided and weak. They saw a planet that could not agree on anything. To them, humans looked perfect for simple work. They could walk on 2 legs, use their hands, and follow basic orders. The Empire needed servants to clean their halls, grow their food, and maintain their machines. Earth, they decided, would provide them. In the large control room of the United Nations Emergency Command, the air was cold and still. The room was buried deep under a mountain in Switzerland. Large screens showed news feeds from every continent. All of them showed panic. General Park Ji-hwan stood in the center of the room. He was a man from South Korea with short gray hair and calm eyes. He watched the screens without moving. Next to him, Dr. Lee Yuna stared at her own tablet. She was younger, her dark hair tied back tightly. On her screen was not the news, but a stream of complex data. The broadcast signal, she said quietly. It has a specific quantum signature, a fingerprint. My scanner project tracked it. They have been observing us for years with a very specific type of sensor. They saw what they wanted to see, Ji-hwan said. His voice was low and steady. It was a voice used to command, but also to calm. Around them, the voices of world leaders argued on the video screens. Some shouted about immediate surrender. We cannot fight an interstellar empire. One man yelled, his face red. Another pleaded for diplomacy. There must be a mistake. We must talk to them. A woman on another screen, her voice shaking with rage, demanded a military response. Nuke our own skies if we have to. Better dead than slaves. Ji-hwan watched them. He had seen this before. The fear, the anger, the confusion. It was the first stage of any great crisis. He waited. He let the wave of noise crash against the walls. Then he pressed a button on the console in front of him. A sharp, clear tone sounded through all the speakers. The arguing faces on the screens stopped and looked at him. Esteemed leaders, Ji-hwan began, the time for debate about if we fight is over. It ended the moment they declared our children property. The only debate now is how we survive. He nodded to Dr. Lee. She tapped her tablet, and a new set of images replaced the news feeds. They were not pictures of advanced alien ships. They were schematics, blueprints, and test results. They had names like Project Aegis, Voidhammer, and Gorgon Catalyst. For the last 12 years, Gaiwan continued, in secret labs, in underground bunkers, in isolated research stations, pieces of this have been built, not as a unified plan, but as 1,000 separate experiments. Some for energy, some for materials science, some for deep space communication. He pointed to the schematic of a device that looked like a complex satellite dish. Dr. Lee's Aegis scanner was designed to map asteroids. but it can also map the energy frequency of a force field. He pointed to another, a missile design. The Void Hammer was a mining tool, meant to break apart large rocks without explosives. It creates a tiny, short-lived gravity twist. Finally, he pointed to a complex chemical formula. The Gorgon process was discovered by accident, trying to make better solar panels. It makes certain advanced metals and electronics turn brittle and shatter. A leader from a small European nation spoke up, his voice small. These are toys, tools, not weapons. You cannot fight a star empire with a better mining laser and a chemistry set. Ji Huan allowed a small, hard smile to touch his lips. It did not reach his eyes. Is that so? What is a weapon? It is a tool used with a specific purpose. A knife can make food. It can also defend a life. These are not just tools. They are human ideas. And for 12 years, while we argued on the surface, our brightest minds were in the dark, building better ideas. He leaned forward, his hands on the console. The Kellerax saw our anvil. They saw the hard surface we beat ourselves against. They saw our conflicts and thought it was all we were. They did not look into the fire. They did not see the heat that forges the metal. They did not see the blacksmith. He turned to look at the main screen, which now showed the frozen, arrogant face of the blue alien Grand Proctor Davin, still repeating his proclamation on a loop. They think they are coming to collect servants. They are wrong. They are coming to the forge. And they are wearing very flammable clothes. In a busy workshop in Daejeon, South Korea, a young engineer named Kim Tae-shik was not watching the news. He was elbow-deep in the wiring of a large hexagonal device. His hands were steady. On a monitor next to him, the data from Dr. Lee Yuna's scanner was flowing. It was the fingerprint of the alien signal. Got you, Tae-shik muttered to himself. He connected 2 final wires. The device hummed to life. It was a transmitter, but one designed to emit a very specific, disruptive pulse. It was not built to destroy. It was built to jam, perfectly and completely, the one frequency the Kellerax used for everything. He called it the silencer. It was his contribution to the 1,000 little projects. He didn't think of it as a weapon. He thought of it as turning off a very annoying, very dangerous alarm clock. On a remote platform in the asteroid belt, Captain Song Mi-sha stood on the observation deck of the mining station Jinshan. Below her, through the thick window, the blackness of space was dotted with stars. Her crew was terrified. They had heard the proclamation. They were far from home and felt utterly exposed. She opened a secure channel. The face of General Ji Huan appeared on her screen. Captain Song, he said. The Gorgon materials. Are they ready? Mi-cha took a deep breath. She thought of her 2 young sons back on Earth. She thought of the alien demand for 1 million young people. Her fear solidified into something cold and sharp. Yes, General. The prototype array is operational. We can catalyze the reaction at a distance of 5,000 kilometers. What are your orders? Stay at your post, Captain. And be ready. When they come to our house, we will not just close the door. We will change the lock so their key turns to dust in their hand. Back in the Swiss bunker, the world leaders were quiet. The panic was not gone, but it was now mixed with a dangerous, fragile hope. They had seen the anvil their whole lives. For the first time, someone was showing them the gathered tools beside it, and pointing to the hot, waiting fire. Dr. Lee Yuna looked at General Ji Huan. The first wave will come to Seoul. The broadcast indicated a preference for major population centers for the collection. Ji Huan nodded. Then that is where we will give our first reply. Not with a plea, not with a protest. We will give them a physics lesson. He looked around the room, at the faces on the screens. We have 30 days. Mobilize every scientist, every engineer, every soldier. Do not build what you think they have. Build what they have never even imagined. Build the wrath of a species that just remembered it would rather break than kneel. Outside, the world was still afraid. But in hidden places, in deep labs and quiet workshops, the sound of work began. It was not the sound of an army marching. It was the sound of welding torches, of typing on keyboards, of chemical reactions. It was the sound of a planet, insulted to its very core, starting to build its answer. The 30-day countdown began. The world knew fear, but a new kind of work started underneath it. It was not the organized work of governments at first. It was the work of individuals, of small teams in forgotten places, who heard the alien proclamation and decided to act. General Park Ji-hwan's plan was simple. He did not try to build one giant spaceship. He did not try to copy the alien technology. His orders, sent through secure channels, went to people like Dr. Lee Yuna and Kim Tae-shik. The order said, make your project work. Make it bigger. Make it so it can hurt. In a reinforced hangar, buried in a mountain in Norway, a different team worked. Their leader was a man known only by the code name Marcus. His real name was Choi Hyun-woo. He was a quiet engineer from Busan who had lost his family in a disaster years ago. He had since dedicated his life to studying forces of nature. His project was the Void Hammer. Before the proclamation, it was a theory. A way to break apart asteroids for mining by creating a tiny, temporary flaw in space itself. A short, intense gravity spike that would twist and shatter rock without explosives. On paper, it was clean. Now, Hyun-woo and his team worked day and night to turn the theory into a weapon. They built a launcher, a massive magnetic railgun pointed at the ceiling of the cave. The projectile was a dense, spear-like object. It did not carry explosives. It carried a power cell that would, on impact, create a gravitational anomaly for 3 seconds. Hyun-woo looked at the first test model. 3 seconds, he said to his assistant. Is it enough? We do not know what their shields are made of, sir, the assistant replied. Then we will find out, Hyun-woo said. His voice was flat. He was not building a weapon for glory. He was building a key to twist a lock until it snapped. Meanwhile, in the bustling chaos of Seoul, Kim Tae-shik's workshop was a mess of wires and computer parts. The fear in the city was a physical thing. People were leaving. They were hiding food. But Tae-shik stayed in his lab, surviving on coffee and rice cakes. His silencer device was connected to Dr. Lee Yuna's main Aegis scanner network. Yuna herself was in a separate bunker near Seoul. Her scanner was now actively probing the edges of the solar system, looking for the energy signature of the Kellerax approach. More importantly, she was analyzing every piece of data from their original broadcast. She was looking for a weakness, a pattern, a rhythm in their technology. It is all based on harmonic resonance, she explained over a secure video call to General Ji-hwan. He was still in Switzerland, coordinating the global chaos. Their shields, their communications, even their ship power. It all sings on a specific quantum frequency, like a choir where every voice is tuned to the same note. And your scanner can hear this note? Ji-hwan asked. Not just hear it, Yuna said, a flicker of passion in her tired eyes. I can sing it back to them, louder. If I broadcast their own perfect resonance frequency back at their systems, it will be like a singer trying to hear a whisper while standing next to a screaming speaker. Their systems will overload. They will go deaf and blind. Can you make it a scream that breaks their throat? Ji-hwan asked simply. Yuna paused. The question was violent. Her work had always been about listening, about understanding. Now it was about breaking. She thought of the alien's cold, silver eyes. She thought of the list her own government had to make of who might be taken in the tithe. "Yes," she said, her voice firm. "I can." Far away, on the mining platform Jinshan in the asteroid belt, Captain Song Micha prepared her strange weapon. The Gorgon array was not a gun. It looked like a large, intricate satellite dish covered in crystalline nodes. It was based on a failed experiment to grow perfect silicon crystals for solar cells in zero gravity. The process had gone wrong, resulting in a beam that caused rapid, chaotic crystallization in certain materials. It turned smooth metal into a brittle, frosted honeycomb. Misha supervised as her crew aimed the array at a discarded piece of station plating. "Fire at 10% power," she ordered. A pale green beam lanced out, silent in the vacuum. It struck the metal. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a white frost seemed to bloom from the point of impact. It spread fast, like ice cracking over a pond. In less than a minute, the solid, flexible plating had turned into a white, crystalline structure. A crew member tapped it gently with a tool. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. Like glass. Micha let out a breath she did not know she was holding. "It works," she whispered. She looked at the swirling green gas of the nebula nearby. She thought of the sleek alien ships. What were they made of? Would the beam work? It had to. It was all they had. Back on Earth, the pieces of the plan were scattered and separate. The Voidhammer team in Norway did not know the details of the Gorgon array. The Aegis team in Seoul had never met Marcus. General Ji Hwan was the only one who saw the whole strange puzzle. He did not force the pieces to fit together. He just made sure each piece was sharp. He also had to deal with the rest of the world. Panic was turning to anger in some places. In others, people were giving up. A vocal group demanded surrender. 1 million is a small price to pay for our survival. A politician argued on a popular news show that Ji-Hwan watched this from his bunker. He knew he could not argue with words. He had to show them. He authorized a secret small test. A single old satellite in high orbit was chosen as the target. It was non-functional, just space junk. On the same day, 3 things happened. In Norway, Choi Hyun-woo fired his Voidhammer launcher. The spear shot upwards, through a hidden shaft that opened to the sky. In Seoul, Kim Tae-shik activated his silencer, tuned to the satellite's simple communication frequency. And in the asteroid belt, Captain Misha powered the Gorgon array, aiming at a small metal test canister released from her ship. The results came in. The satellite, hit by the Voidhammer projectile, did not explode. It crumpled. It twisted in on itself, as if a giant, invisible hand had squeezed it. Then it drifted apart, a cloud of shattered fragments. The silencer pulse simply turned the satellite systems off a second before impact. It was a clean, total shutdown. The test canister in space turned into a floating cloud of sparkling dust after the green beam touched it. General Ji Hwan compiled the video data. He did not show it to the public. Instead, he showed it to the arguing world leaders. He showed them the satellite twisting and dying. He showed the silent, effective jamming. He showed the metal turning to crystal and dust. "There will be no tithe," he said to their silent, shocked faces on the screens. "There will be no servants. There will only be a response. They believe they are coming to a farm to collect livestock. We will show them they have walked into a forest full of thorns and traps and wolves they have never seen." Before the 25th day came, Dr. Lee Yuna's scanners picked up the first distortion at the edge of the solar system. 3 energy signatures, moving fast. The Calirax collector fleet was right on time. Yuna sent the alert. They are here. ETA to Earth orbit. 5 days. The quiet, Desperate work stopped. The preparation was over. All the strange, sharp pieces were in place. The anvil was ready. The fire was hot. Now the blacksmiths of Earth waited, tools in hand, for the arrogant metal to arrive. The 3 Calarax collector ships slipped into orbit around Earth. They were beautiful and terrible to see. They looked like daggers made from dark blue glass and silver metal. They moved without sound, glowing with a soft internal light. They positioned themselves over 3 major cities: Seoul, Shanghai, and Mumbai. Grand Proctor Davin, on the lead ship over Seoul, expected chaos below. He expected crowds begging for mercy. He expected to see the organized lines of human servants, ready for collection. Instead, the cities were quiet. Eerily quiet. The streets were empty of people. In Seoul, the only movement was the fluttering of abandoned paper in the wind. The humans had hidden. This annoyed Davin. It was disorderly. Servants should be compliant, not hiding. Scan for life signs, Davin ordered his tech officer. Focus on the large structures. They are likely cowering inside. The scans came back. Yes, there were millions of life signs deep underground, in subway tunnels and bunkers. But on the surface, nothing. Davin's silver eyes narrowed. A small itch of doubt touched his mind. This was not the reaction of a servitor species. This was the reaction of prey that had gone to ground. But prey was still prey. Open communication channels to the planetary surface, he said. Broadcast the collection points. They have 1 hour to present the first tithe, or we will begin surgical strikes to encourage compliance. In the bunker under Seoul, General Park Ji-hwan listened to the translated demand. He stood beside Dr. Lee Yuna. Kim Tae-shik was at his console, his fingers hovering over a keyboard. On a screen, they could see a live image of the alien ship, hanging in the sky like a dark tear. 1 hour, Ji-hwan said. He looked at Yuna. Can your scanner now give us a perfect map of their ship's energy shield? Its exact frequency? Yuna nodded. Her face was pale but focused. The Aegis has been scanning them since they arrived. Their shield is powerful, but it is constant. It sings one note very loudly. I have the score. Ji-hwan turned to Tae-shik. And your silencer? Can you sing that note back to them right at the source? Tae-shik grinned, a nervous, excited flash of teeth. I have been tuning it for days. It is ready. It will not just jam them. It will be like shoving their own song down their throat. Good, Ji-hwan said. He then opened a channel to a bunker in Norway. Choi Hyen-woo. Are you ready? The calm, tired face of the man called Marcus appeared. The void hammer is loaded. The targeting data from Dr. Lee is received. We are ready to fire. Finally, Ji-hwan opened a channel to the asteroid belt. Captain Song Miesha, hold your position. Be ready to move on my mark. On the screen, Misha nodded firmly. The Gorgon array is charged and ready, General. Ji-hwan took a deep breath. He looked at the countdown clock. 57 minutes remained. We will not wait for their deadline, he said to everyone listening. We will answer their first knock on our door. All units, stand by. Up in orbit, Grand Proctor Davin grew impatient. The silence from the planet was insulting. Deploy the hunter-seeker drones, he commanded. Target major infrastructure. Power plants. Communication towers. Let them feel a little pain. Let them understand the cost of disobedience. From the belly of the lead ship, 100 small, silver shapes dropped away. They fell toward Seoul like deadly rain. They were designed to disable, not destroy. To frighten Dot in the bunker, alarms sounded. Drones inbound. Multiple targets. This is it, Ji-hwan said, his voice calm. Dr. Lee, Mr. Kim, silence their toys. Yuna gave a sharp nod. T-Shik slammed his hand down on a large red button. On the surface, a series of unremarked-looking pylons, disguised as cell phone towers, hummed to life. They emitted no visible beam, but a wave of pure, focused quantum resonance shot upwards. It was the exact frequency of the Kellerak's drone control signal. The effect was instant. The 100 Hunter-Seeker drones did not explode. They simply stopped. Their guidance systems were flooded with the very signal they used to operate. It was too much, too perfect. The drones wobbled in the air. Their lights went out. Then they fell, clattering harmlessly onto empty streets and rooftops like a shower of dead metal birds. On the Kellerak's bridge, alarms blared. "Proctor, we have lost all drone links. Complete system failure." Davin stood up. "What? How?" "Scramble fighters. Find the source of that interference." Before his order could be carried out, a new alert screamed. Gravity spike detection. Incoming projectile from the planetary surface. Unusual signature. Davin looked at the main screen. A fast-moving object was rising from the continent below. It was not a missile. It had no explosive signature. It was just a dense, fast rod of metal. "It is a primitive kinetic weapon. Our shields will deflect it easily," he said, dismissing it. The void hammer projectile struck the ship's energy shield. For a brief moment, the shield held. Then something happened. At the point of impact, space itself twisted. The shield, designed to deflect energy and matter, could not defend against a flaw in reality. The gravitational shear tore a hole in the energy field. The projectile passed through and slammed directly into the ship's hull, but it did not explode. Instead, it activated. For 3 seconds, a tiny, incredibly dense gravity well bloomed inside the ship's forward section dot to the crew inside. It was like the universe tipped sideways. Metal screamed as it was wrenched in opposing directions. Support beams snapped like twigs. The beautiful, sleek dagger of the ship was suddenly bent. A deep, groaning sound echoed through the hull as the entire vessel was shoved violently off its axis, tumbling out of control. Structural integrity failing. Engines offline. "We are caught in a gravity shear." The tech officer yelled. Davin was thrown from his chair. He clawed his way back, looking at the screens. His ship, the pride of the collector fleet, was crippled. He saw the second ship, over Shanghai, moving to assist. The third ship, over Mumbai, was powering up its weapons. All ships. Return fire. Level their cities. Davin screamed, his voice full of a new, hot emotion, rage mixed with fear. The second Kellerak ship turned its energy cannons towards the Earth. A bright, deadly light gathered at its tip dot in the Swiss bunker. General Jihuan saw it happening. "Captain Song, now!" The second ship. "Do not let it fire." Out in the asteroid belt, Captain Misha did not hesitate. "Fire the Gorgon array. Full power. Target their main engine array." The Jinshen platform turned. The crystalline dish glowed with a sickly green light. A beam, silent and fast, crossed the vast distance of space. It struck the second Kellerak ship right where the engine met the hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a white frost began to spread from the point of impact. It crawled across the blue hull like a fast-growing fungus. Where it went, the smooth, advanced metal changed. It became cloudy. It became brittle. Inside the ship, systems began to fail as circuitry crystallized and shattered. The ship's captain tried to fire his cannons, but the trigger mechanism was now a lump of crystal. He tried to send a warning, but his communication array was turning to frozen dust. He watched in horror as the frost reached the viewport. The transparent material turned opaque, then white, then a million tiny cracks appeared. The second ship did not explode. It silently came apart, like a glass sculpture dropped on stone. It shattered into a million glittering pieces, scattering in the sunlight. Grand. Proctor Davin saw it on his damaged view screen. His mind could not process it. One ship bent and broken by a gravity weapon. One ship turned to crystal and dust by a beam he did not understand. His own ship was falling from orbit, trailing smoke and debris. He looked down at the blue planet below. It was not a planet of servants. It was a planet of monsters who fought with nightmares made real. He had come to collect workers. He had walked into a trap. His ship, out of control, plunged into the atmosphere. The heat of re-entry began to peel away the damaged hull. The last thing Gavin saw was the calm, empty streets of Seoul rushing up to meet him. His ship crashed into the sea with a great plume of water and fire, gone forever. The third Kelirac ship over Mumbai stopped. It did not fire. It did not move to help. It simply hung there, as if in shock. Then it turned. Its engines glowed brightly. It shot away from Earth, faster than it had arrived, heading back towards the stars. On Earth, people watched the sky. They saw one ship break and fall. They saw another turn to glitter and vanish. They saw the third run away. A strange silence held the world. Then, from the bunkers and the tunnels, a sound began to rise. It was not a cheer of victory. It was a deep, collective sigh of relief, mixed with a dawning understanding. The fight was not over. It had only just begun. But the first lesson had been delivered, and humanity had not been the student. The silence after the battle was brief. The news spread across Earth. One alien ship destroyed, one shattered into dust, one fleeing in retreat. A wave of raw, screaming celebration erupted in some places. People poured into the streets of Seoul, Mumbai, and Shanghai, hugging and crying under the now clear sky. But in the bunkers where the decisions were made, the mood was different. It was cold, focused, and grim. General Park Ji-won watched the celebrations on a monitor with no expression. He turned to his core team. Dr. Lee Yuna looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Kim Tae-shik was vibrating with nervous energy. The video feed of Choi Hyun-woo in Norway showed a man who seemed older, as if firing the Void Hammer had taken something from him. Captain Song Misa, still on her platform in the asteroid belt, waited quietly. "They have run back to their empire," Ji-won said. "They will tell their leaders what happened. And the empire will not see this as a defeat. They will see it as an insult. They will return, not with collector ships, with a war fleet." He let the words hang in the air. The brief sense of victory in the room evaporated. So we hide? We prepare defenses? A European liaison officer asked. Ji-Hwan shook his head slowly. No, a cornered animal defends its den. A smart animal poisons the hunter's food. We will not wait for them to bring the war to our home. We will take it to theirs. A shocked murmur went around the room. We have 3 prototype weapons and a few hidden bases. Someone objected. We cannot attack an interstellar empire. We do not have their ships, Ji-won agreed. But we have their navigation data. He pointed to the main screen, where lines of code scrolled. The lead ship's computers were not completely destroyed in the crash. Dr. Lee's teams have been culling data from the wreckage in the sea. We have star charts. We know where their important worlds are, their mining outposts, their communication relays. He looked at each of them. We do not fight a war of conquest. We fight a war of erasure. We show them that the cost of touching Earth is the total collapse of their order. We use what we have, not to defeat their fleet in battle, but to make their civilization impossible. The plan was named Operation Pandora's Reply. It was not a single attack. It was a campaign of terrifying tricks. The first target was a Kellyrax mining outpost in a nearby star system. It was a facility that processed rare minerals for their war machine. A small human vessel, little more than a converted cargo hauler with a powerful engine and a Gorgon array, made the journey. It was commanded by Captain Song Misha. Her ship, the Stoneleaf, emerged from its jump near the asteroid mine, that the Kellyrax defenders saw a single, ugly, blocky ship. They scoffed. They moved to intercept with 2 small patrol craft. Misha did not target the ships. She aimed the Gorgon array at the main processing hub of the mine, a giant silvery structure clinging to an asteroid. The familiar pale green beam lanced out. It struck the central refinery. The effect was slower this time, spreading across the vast metal surface like frost on a window. The Kellyrax watched in confusion as their primary refinery turned a milky white. Then, when a patrol craft fired a warning shot that grazed the crystallized structure, the entire refinery shattered. It exploded into a cloud of fine, sparkling powder, leaving thousands of miners floating helpless in space, their livelihood gone. The Stoneleaf jumped away before the patrol craft could react. It left behind not death, but ruin. The mech strike was by a team led by Choi Hyun Woo. His target was a key communications relay station, a nexus for FTL messages across a sector. His ship carried a scaled-down void hammer, a gravity spike mine. They slipped into the system, disguised their small vessel as debris, and deployed the mine near the relay station. When a Kellyrax supply ship passed close by to dock, the mine activated. It did not explode. It created a sudden, intense gravity whirlpool for 5 seconds. The supply ship and the delicate relay station were pulled together and crushed into an unrecognizable ball of scrap metal. The gravity wave then dissipated, leaving only silent, twisted wreckage. A whole sector of the Kellyrax empire fell silent, cut off from command, but the most psychologically damaging weapon was Dr. Lee Yuna's Aegis Pulse. Kim Taeshik had worked with her to turn the scanner into a broadcaster. They did not attack ships or stations. They attacked the Kellyrax people directly. A human stealth probe, carrying a powerful transmitter, entered orbit around Viridia Prime, a populous Kellyrax agricultural world. It was not a military target. It was a civilized, peaceful planet. The probe activated. It began broadcasting the perfected silencer pulse, but on a planet-wide scale. It was tuned to the fundamental frequency of all standard Kellyrax technology. On Viridia Prime, the lights went out. Every vehicle stopped moving in the streets. Every communicator went dead. Every energy weapon became a useless piece of metal. Every screen went black. In hospitals, life support machines powered by their tech flickered and died. The planet was not boned. It was thrust backwards in time by 1,000 years in an instant. The society that depended utterly on their harmonic technology simply stopped functioning. Chaos, born of silence and darkness, took over. The message of these attacks was clear and brutal. Humanity was not fighting honorably. They were not meeting fleets in glorious battle. They were breaking tools. They were turning off the lights. They were making the advanced, proud Kellyrax civilization look fragile and stupid back on the Kellyrax homeworld. The ruling council was in an uproar. Reports flooded in. A mine turned to dust, a sector gone silent, a major planet technologically castrated. The creatures they had declared servants were not building a rebellion. They were conducting a systematic dismantling. They are vandals. Ghosts, the Empress hissed, her silver eyes blazing. They strike and vanish. They do not face our warriors. A senior military commander bowed his head. Our warriors cannot fight what they cannot understand, Majesty. We can shoot a ship. How do we shoot idea that turns our ships into glass? How do we armor against a weapon that bends space itself? The empire that had ruled through fear for millennia was now tasting it. The humans were not trying to take their territory. They were proving that the Kellyrax's territory, their very way of life, was built on pillars of sand that human science could dissolve. On Earth, General Ji Huan monitored the reports. There was no joy in his face. Each successful attack was a step deeper into a dark place. They were not just killing soldiers. They were erasing the works of a civilization. He knew there was no turning back. He received a final report. The fleeing collector ship from Earth had been tracked. It had led them to the location of a major naval shipyard, where new Kellyrax warships were being built. G-1 called a meeting with his team. The final lesson, he said. We hit their shipyard. We show them we can reach their heart. We use everything together. The Aegis Pulse to blind them. The Void Hammer to break their docks. The Gorgon Beam to turn their newest warships into monuments of failure. Captain Micha, Choi Hyan-woo, Dr. Lee, and Kim Tae-shik all listened. They were no longer just scientists and engineers and soldiers. They were the four heads of a new, terrifying beast. A beast that answered a declaration of servitude with the quiet, methodical wrath of erasure. Prepare the combined fleet, Ji-hwan ordered, his voice like stone. We end this where it began. Not with a plea for peace, but with a demonstration so absolute they will never think the word human again without feeling the cold. The human fleet was not a fleet. It was a collection of misfits. There was the Stoneleaf, Captain Song Misa's mining platform now fitted with the Gorgon array. There was the Silent Forge, a heavy cargo hauler carrying Choi Hyan-woo's massive Void Hammer launcher. There was the Echo, a fast scout ship where Dr. Lee Yuna and Kim Tae-shik had installed the master Aegis Pulse transmitter. A handful of other vessels, armed with conventional missiles for close defense, completed the group. They looked like junk, but they carried the distilled wrath of a planet. They jumped into the edge of the Kellyrax shipyard system. Before them, against the backdrop of a purple nebula, was the heart of imperial power. Dozens of sleek, half-built warships hung in skeletal dry docks. A massive central station, the citadel of construction, glowed with cool blue light. Defense platforms and patrol ships orbited like watchful birds. General Park. Ji Huan's face was on every screen in the human fleet. Remember the objective, his voice crackled. Not to occupy. Not to destroy every ship. To erase their will. Make them understand that every bolt they forge, every hull they shape, can be taken from them. Begin. On the bridge of the Echo, Yuna and Tae-shik worked quickly. The Citadel's shield frequency is complex, but it has a rhythm, Yuna said, her eyes on the Aegis scanner's display. It's a chord. We need to match every note and amplify it. Tae-shik's fingers flew over his console, feeding the harmonic sequence to the pulse emitter. Ready in 10 seconds. On the Silent Forge, Choi Hyan-woo watched the targeting data flow in. His Void Hammer was aimed not at a ship, but at the primary gravitational anchor of the largest dry dock. Aim true, he whispered, not to his crew, but to the memory of the family he had lost long ago. This was his final hammer blow. On the Stoneleaf, Micha looked at the glowing, half-formed battleships. She thought of her sons on Earth, safe because of what they were about to do. Power the Gorgon array to maximum. Target the flagship in the central dock. The symbol of their pride. The Kellyrax defenders spotted them. The ugly, blocky human ships were an insult in this place of beauty and order. Patrol ships turned, their weapons glowing with deadly light. A signal came from the Citadel. Unknown vessels, you are in restricted Imperial space. Power down and surrender, or be obliterated. There was no human reply. Instead, the Echo broadcasted the Aegis Pulse. It was not a visible wave. It was a command written in the language of Kilarax physics. It washed over the citadel, the defense platforms, the patrol ships. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The citadel's shimmering blue shield flickered, sang a screeching, discordant note, and vanished. Every light on the defense platforms winked out. The patrol ships, suddenly blind and deaf, drifted off course, their systems locked up by the overriding harmonic scream. The orderly dance of the shipyard became a stumbling, silent chaos. Now, General Ji Huan's voice ordered. The silent forge fired its void hammer. The projectile, a dark spear against the stars, shot across the distance. It struck the gravitational anchor of the main dry dock. Space twisted. The immense dry dock structure, made to hold battleships, groaned as if in pain. The framework of super-strong metal bent, then snapped. The half-built warship inside was crumpled like a paper cup. The wreckage spiraled away, crashing into another dock in a cascade of destruction. Before the Kellerax could even understand that attack, the stone leaf fired. The Gorgon beam, a river of pale green light, cut through the darkness. It struck the prow of the newest, most advanced Kellerax battleship, sitting proudly in the central dock. The beam did not burn. It transformed. The beautiful, curved blue hull turned a sickly white. The frost of crystallization spread from the point of impact, racing across the ship's surface, diving into its open maintenance hatches. In less than a minute, the magnificent warship was no longer a ship. It was a frozen, crystalline sculpture, a monument to its own obsolescence. A nearby defense turret, panicking, fired a stray laser bolt at it. The bolt struck the crystallized hull. The entire battleship shattered. It exploded into a cloud of glittering, rainbow-hued dust that slowly drifted through the dry dock, settling over everything like a cruel, beautiful snow dot inside the citadel. The view screens showed only static. The Kellerax overseer tried to call for help, but the comms were dead. He tried to activate emergency weapons, but the consoles were lifeless. He stumbled to a window and looked out at his dying shipyard. He saw the dark human junk ships methodically working. He saw his greatest works bent into scrap or turned into glittering powder. He did not see warriors. He saw engineers performing a demolition. It was not war. It was disposal. The human ships did not press further. They did not attack the helpless patrol ships. They did not storm the citadel. They had done what they came to do. On the bridge of the Echo, Kim Tae-shik watched the sensor data. The pulse is holding. Their systems are completely locked. They're stuck. Dr. Lee Yuna looked at the main screen, at the stunning, silent destruction. The beautiful crystals floating where a warship had been. She felt no triumph, only a hollow chill. "We have shown them the void," she said softly. "The void where their technology goes to die." General Ji Huan's voice came through one last time. "Send the final message on the frequency they used for their proclamation. Use their own grammar. A simple text-only message, translated into the Kellerax language, was broadcast from the Echo to the silent citadel, and from there, it would eventually leak across the entire empire, to the Kellerax dominion. You declared humanity a servitor species. You were incorrect. We are the nullifiers. We break what cannot be left whole. We silence what speaks of ownership. Approach Earth again, and we will not break your ships. We will break your stars. This is our only communication." The human ships turned. Their engines flared, not with the elegant blue light of Kellerax drives, but with the simple, fiery orange of human propulsion. They moved away from the shattered shipyard, leaving behind the silence, the glittering dust, and a civilization that had just learned the meaning of a new word, fear. On Earth, the news arrived. The shipyard was neutralized. The message sent. There were no cheers this time. People gathered in quiet groups. They looked at the sky, not with terror of what might come, but with a solemn understanding of what they had unleashed. They had looked into the abyss of servitude, and had instead forged a mirror, showing the galaxy its own fragility. In his bunker, General Park Ji-hwan finally sat down. The weight of it all pressed on him. He had saved Earth by making it the source of a terrifying legend. He looked at the images of the crystallized battleship. Captain Song Mi-sha, back on the stone leaf, held the picture of her sons. She had made a universe where they would never be taken as servants. She had also made a universe where their mother was a bringer of silent, crystalline death. She was not sure how to feel. Choi Hyun-woo, on the silent forge, stared at his hands. The hands that built the hammer that bent reality. His personal grief was now woven into the fate of civilizations. Dr. Lee Yuna and Kim Tae-shik sat together in the Echoes lab, surrounded by their humming machines. They had listened to the universe's song, and then they had learned how to make it scream. The science was over. Now they were just keepers of a terrible power. The galaxy would remember. The Calirax Empire, its spine broken not by a superior fleet, but by a handful of simple, brutal ideas, began to fracture. Other species, once under its heel, heard the story of the humans. They did not speak of human warriors or human ships. They whispered about the planet that, when told to kneel, had instead shown the galaxy how to break things forever. Earth was safe, but it was now alone in a new way, surrounded by a silence of its own making, the terrifying silence that comes after an act of absolute, final wrath.